You said something to me the other day that I thought was a really great way to articulate founders' perspective when it comes to pitch deck. You said, Ed, founders assume that an investor is going to spend 30 minutes looking at their pitch deck. Expand on that.
Let's talk about the difference between how you think your pitch deck is about to get processed and how your pitch deck is actually going to get processed. Okay. Let's start with how you think it's going to get processed, right? We think that our pitch deck is akin to either a mortgage application that is going to get line by line read through, just like everyone else's, right? Or we think it's a term paper, just like when we used to submit to our college professor, and they're going to sit back and just contemplate exactly all the nuance and all the detail and spend all that time through every slide. This could not be the more opposite. If you think that the process is even remotely close to either of those, and I'm going to summarize those by saying, if you think one, that your application, so to speak, is going to get the same consideration as everyone else's, you could not be more wrong. Two, if you think that someone's going to spend the time to even read your pitch deck, you're equally wrong. Now, take those two assumptions and start to apply it to what we see in a pitch deck. Here's some examples. Number one, my pitch deck is visually a mess. So that's okay. So long as the concept is good, an investor will rifle through it. Why bother? If I'm an investor and I've got 20 decks that I can look at today, why am I going to look at your absolute devastation of a pitch deck when I can just look at other ones that were properly done? I have no incentive to deal with your mess or your first-time amateur attempt when I can just move on to the people who haven't, okay? The second, I don't have time to read. Now, that's so antithetical to how people think pitch decks get processed, okay? So someone sends us a pitch deck at Startups.com, and they say, here's essentially my brochure. I've got 42 slides loaded with text, right? And I put so much time into them. And we stop and say, do you know anybody that actually wants to read this? Well, investors will want to read it. No, they don't. Here's what investors actually want to do. They want to scan your deck. If you've done your job, you can say everything you needed to say and have it fully parsed in under 2 minutes, tops. Here's a dream deck as an investor. 12 slides, 1 to 2 sentences per slide, and the founder did such a good job of telling me the most important point that they want me to take away from each and every slide. That is a perfect slide deck. Here's what's not happening. I don't get the deck as an investor, and I sit down in my big comfy chair in front of a fire, and I guess maybe light up a pipe and sit there and contemplate each of the concepts in the market and the vision of this company. I don't give a shit about any of that. Get to the point.
Let me tell you, and I think some founders fall into hubris, and they think, wow, the investor is going to be so thankful that I brought the next $1 trillion idea to them. I deserve to have the audience. I deserve that time that the investor is going to put into it. Like, I act entitled is what happens.
That's what I meant by the college term paper where you expect your professor to read through all of it, or a mortgage application where you know that even if you don't get approved, that it will have to get processed. Here's how it's actually going to get processed. I'm going to get your deck. I'm going to sit it next to 20 other decks. I'm going to groan by the fact that I have to go through all these damn decks because most of them are so awful and so poorly prepared. I'm going to rip through them as fast as possible. And here are some of the heuristics I'm going to use as I go through. Number one, first page that comes up, if it looks like Microsoft clip art, and I'm not even just talking about the design, there is almost a one-for-one connection between decks that just look god-awful and startups that are equally god-awful, okay? Here's the example I would use. Take a restaurant, okay? Restaurants that tend to be nice have like a nice awning and a nice frontage. Maybe their food isn't great, but there's usually a correlation. Restaurants that are awful, like at a strip mall that used to be a nail salon, that used to be a tanning, like it used to be a cash advance place, look like that, right? So first thing, like first impression, as soon as I see a deck and I'm like, oh my God, this is the most ugly thing I've ever seen, it's rarely a great company behind it. And again, I'm not overstating the design. Design doesn't save you, but holy cow, you can tell right off the bat when it's a startup that's just not buttoned up. The second thing is when I go to the first slide and I realize they didn't even tell me what the name of the slide was. Every slide's supposed to have the name at the top left. It's supposed to have problem, solution, market size, whatever. And there's nothing. Clearly, nobody has coached this founder. Okay. Third step, as I'm getting into this deck, just tell me what you want me to know. Don't present a bunch of data and be like, hey, homework for you. You go figure out what that means. Don't give me citations. What am I, a research analyst? Right? Like, I'm not going to click on your citations and go check you out on Wikipedia. I don't care about any of that stuff. If you did the homework, just tell me the answer. If the total addressable market's this big, I'm assuming you did your homework. Don't send me citations to go foot. It doesn't make any sense. So here's what's actually happening. I'm going to spend 30 seconds rifling through the deck. First pass, I'm just going to quickly sort to see if this is one of the crappy decks that I get so many of, so I don't want to even bother spending time on. If it looks professionally presented, the next thing I'm going to look for is brevity. Are you getting to the point quickly? I do not want to spend lots of time on your deck because it shows me that you don't know how to tell your story. The third step is just basically, is this even in my wheelhouse? Even if I like the presentation, I like the fact that you've gotten to the point, oh, it's a pre-seed deal. I don't do pre-seed deals. No amount of pitch deck preparation is going to change the fact that I don't do pre-seed deals. That's how your deck's actually being processed. And it's going to be given ones of minutes of attention because it's just a way for me to say, should I talk to Ed?